The hypothalamic pituitary axis is the regulatory center of our endocrine system. The hypothalamus is part of the diencephalon. It is connected to the pituitary gland by a tube called the pituitary stalk. The hypothalamus contains neuroendocrine cells. Small neuroendocrine cells empty their secretions into the frontal lobe of the pituitary gland, where they stimulate hormone production. Large neuroendocrine cells produce ADH, or antidiuretic hormones, and oxytocin, which are hormones stored in the posterior lobe of the pituitary gland, and then emptied into the bloodstream. Oxytocin is a hormone that stimulates the contraction of smooth muscles. It plays an important role in childbirth and breastfeeding. It is often called the love hormone, as it is important in forming bonds between mother and child or in romantic relationships. ADH is also known as vasopressin. It reduces the amount of urine by increasing water absorption in the kidneys. The frontal lobe of the pituitary gland secretes prolactin and growth hormone. Prolactin stimulates the mammary glands to produce milk. Growth hormone deficiency causes proportional dwarfism, while its excess causes gigantism, or, if it develops in adult age, acromegaly, that is, abnormal growth of the tongue, hands, nose, and ears. The frontal lobe plays an important role in the regulation of other endocrine glands. Hormones produced by the hypothalamus cause the frontal lobe to secrete hormones that stimulate other endocrine glands. The hormone secretion of the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland is regulated through negative feedback inhibition by the hormones secreted by other endocrine glands. Negative feedback inhibition prevents the hyperproduction of hormones, while if the concentration of a hormone is low, it stimulates production. This allows the fine-tuning of hormone concentrations in the body. The limbic system consists The limbic system consists of parts of the cerebral cortex and certain subcortical regions. It is the regulatory center of emotions, motivation, and vegetative functions. It also plays an important role in forming memories. It can be divided into an external and an internal circuit. The internal circuit is indispensable in storing memory traces. One part of this circuit is the amygdala, which plays a key role in forming aggressive behavior, fear, sexual behavior, and sexual identity. If it suffers serious damage, it might cause the loss of fear, which greatly reduces the chances of survival. Stimulation of the amygdala in animals causes rage attacks and an increase of sexual activity and aggression. Damage to the hippocampus may lead to the inability to store new information in the long-term memory, while not losing memories formed before the injury. This region is responsible for moving memory traces from the short-term memory into the long-term memory. Information is transported from the hippocampus to the hypothalamus by a bundle of axons called the fornix. The hypothalamus plays a central role in coordinating homeostasis, that is, the dynamic stability of the internal conditions of the body. It also plays an important role in regulating emotions and vegetative functions, as well as informing motivations such as hunger and thirst. The external circuit consists of the parahippocampal gyrus and the cingulate gyrus. The external circuit is responsible for regulating emotions and behavior. Since the limbic system is directly connected to the olfactory nerves, smell can generate intense emotions and can aid in recalling memories. The levels of biological organization include levels above and below the level of the individual organism. The levels above the level of organisms are populations, communities, biomes, and the biosphere. These levels are studied in the field of ecology. This animation shows the levels below those of the individual organism through an example. An individual, that is, an organism, is built up of organ systems. The main organ systems in humans are the nervous system, the endocrine system, the reproductive system, the musculoskeletal system, the cardiovascular system, the excretory system, the respiratory system, and the digestive system. Organ systems consist of separate organs. For example, one of the most important organs in the digestive system is the liver. It plays an important role in detoxification, the storage of nutrients in the body, and the production of bile, which aids in the digestion of lipids. Organs consist of tissues. The liver is organized into hexagonal lobules. A vein crosses each lobule at the center, while there is an artery, a vein, and a bile duct that runs along each of its corners. Besides liver tissue, the liver also contains other types of tissues, such as blood tissue, epithelial tissue, and connective tissue. Generally, organs contain several types of tissue. Tissues are made up of cells. Liver cells, called hepatocytes, are rich in smooth endoplasmatic reticulum, which plays an important role in removing toxins from the blood. Genetic material is stored in the cell nuclei. Other important cell organelles include the mitochondria, which are responsible for providing energy for the cell. Not all living organisms contain these 5 levels of organization. For example, parazoa and thalloid plants have no tissues. Therefore, they have no organs either. The topmost The topmost layer of our skin is the epidermis, which contains melanocytes. These are specialized pigment-producing cells. When the skin is exposed to sunlight, the production of pigments in melanocytes increases and the skin darkens. This is how tanning occurs. The pigment produced by melanocytes is transferred to other epithelial cells, thereby protecting their DNA from the damaging effects of solar radiation. UV radiation is one of the components of solar radiation. This radiation damages cellular DNA and therefore causes mutations, which may lead to the formation of skin cancer. Skin cancer often results from mutations that take place in melanocytes. UV radiation causes the formation of thiamine dimers in the DNA of melanocytes. This causes a disturbance in protein synthesis, which increases the risk of cancer, that is, uncontrolled cell division and the formation of malignant tumors. Tumor cells can spread to other parts and organs of the body through blood and lymph circulation. These cells can cause the formation of further tumors. This is called metastasis. When recognized early, skin cancer can be treated successfully. Therefore, it is very important to have birthmarks and moles checked regularly by a dermatologist. Melanomas are removed surgically. When not treated early enough, melanomas commonly metastasize, making them one of the most dangerous types of cancer. In order to prevent skin cancer, it is highly recommended that we should use suntan lotion when exposed to sunshine. Suntan lotion prevents UV radiation from reaching the skin, thereby protecting it against the mutagenic or DNA-damaging effect of UV radiation. Human homeostasis, or the dynamic stability of the internal conditions of the body, Human homeostasis, or the dynamic stability of the internal conditions of the body, can be threatened by a number of factors. In such a situation, a stress reaction is produced in response to the stimulation of the nervous system and the hormonal system. This reaction helps us to avoid danger and maintain homeostasis. In a stressful situation, the sympathetic nervous system is activated, stimulating the release of a hormone called adrenaline, or epinephrine, by the adrenal medulla. The combined effect of adrenaline and the sympathetic nervous system leads to a fight or flight reaction. The main symptoms include dilation of the pupils, an increase in the heart rate and in the circulatory minute volume, a release of glucose into the bloodstream from the liver and skeletal muscles, causing an increase in blood glucose level, dilation of the blood vessels in the brain, skeletal muscles, and heart, and constriction of the blood vessels in the intestines, kidneys, and skin. The smooth muscle in the blood vessels found in different organs contains either alpha or beta adrenaline receptors. When binding to alpha receptors, adrenaline causes blood vessels to contract. While binding to beta receptors, it dilates blood vessels. The smooth muscle in our intestines, kidneys, and skin typically contains alpha receptors. When the adrenaline is bound, the alpha receptor activates the G protein, which has 3 subunits. Its alpha subunit converts GDP into GTP, and then activates the phospholipase C enzyme. Phospholipase C breaks the PIP2, that is, the phosphoinositol diphosphate molecule, into IP3 and DAG, that is, inositol triphosphate and diacylglycerol. IP3 causes the endoplasmic reticulum to release calcium ions, while DAG activates the protein kinase C enzyme. Calcium ions and protein kinase C have the joint effect of contracting smooth muscle cells, constricting blood vessels, and decreasing the blood supply to the organs. The smooth muscle in our heart, brain, and blood vessels typically contains beta receptors. Thus, the blood supply to these organs is increased during an alarm reaction. Adrenaline binds to the beta receptors in the smooth muscle of blood vessels. This activates the G protein. The alpha subunit replaces the GDP with a GTP and activates an enzyme called adenylate cyclase. This enzyme converts ATP into cyclic AMP, also known as CAMP. This results in the dilation of blood vessels and thereby the increase of the blood supply to the organ. As adrenaline causes the contraction of certain blood vessels and the dilation of others, it basically sends blood to the skeletal muscles, the heart, and the brain. As an effect of adrenaline, the blood glucose level rises, thus providing energy for the muscles, the heart, and the brain. Glucose is stored in a polymer form as glycogen, primarily in the liver and the skeletal muscles. This is the quickest source of glucose in the body. The beta receptors in liver cells bind adrenaline. Then the alpha subunit of the G protein activates the adenylate cyclase, which synthesizes cyclic AMP. CAMP activates the protein kinase A enzyme. This phosphorylates and thereby activates the glycogen phosphorylase enzyme, which catalyzes the release of glucose phosphates from glycogen. The phosphate groups in the glucose phosphate molecules are removed by an enzyme, and glucose is released into the blood. The heart muscle contains a large amount of a subtype of the beta receptor, the beta-1 receptor. Since adrenaline stimulates the heart through this receptor, drugs known as beta blockers can be used to reduce the load on the heart. There are selective beta-1 blockers, but there are those that act on all types of beta receptors. The use of beta blockers may be necessary for disorders of the heart rate, or high blood pressure, or after a heart attack in order to relax the heart muscle.